poured mercilessly from the dark clouds, hovering over Boston's Logan International Airport, as Lily Matthews, a petite 24-year-old with tired eyes and a baby strapped to her chest, stood at the baggage claim carousel. Her 1-year-old daughter, Grace, slept peacefully against her, oblivious to the chaos around them. Lily's chestnut hair, damp from the rain, clung to her face as she anxiously scanned the conveyor belt for her 2 worn suitcases containing everything they owned in the world. "Please, please come out first," she whispered, bouncing slightly on her toes, a nervous habit she'd developed over the past tumultuous year. The flight from Phoenix had been turbulent, both literally and figuratively, as she'd spent most of it trying to keep Grace from disturbing other passengers while fighting back tears of uncertainty. 3 days ago, Lily had been working her shift at Sunrise Diner in Phoenix when she received the call that changed everything. Her childhood friend Kate had finally convinced her to leave behind the ghosts of her past and move across the country for a fresh start. "I've got a spare room and my sister can help with babysitting while you look for work," Kate had promised. After being evicted from her apartment and having her hours cut at the diner, Lily had finally relented. She'd scraped together her last savings, sold her old Honda Civic, and bought one-way tickets to Boston. The carousel jolted to life, startling Lily from her thoughts. Passengers pressed forward eagerly, creating a wall of bodies between her and the conveyor belt. She tried to squeeze through, murmuring apologies while protecting Grace's sleeping form. "Excuse me," she said softly to a tall man in an expensive-looking coat who blocked her path. He didn't hear her, or chose to ignore her, as he retrieved a sleek black suitcase and stepped away. Finally, Lily spotted her bags, a faded blue suitcase with a broken wheel and a smaller green duffel bag with a rainbow patch Grace had grabbed from the thrift store toy bin. Relief washed over her as she pushed forward to claim them. Just as her fingers grasped the handle of the blue suitcase, a large hand reached over her shoulder and firmly gripped the same handle. Startled, Lily looked up to find herself staring into the stern face of a man in his early 40s, dressed in an impeccable charcoal suit that probably cost more than all her possessions combined. "Don't touch that," he said firmly, his voice deep and commanding. Lily's heart raced as she instinctively tightened her hold on Grace. "I'm sorry, but this is my bag," she said, trying to keep her voice steady despite the tremble in her hands. The man's piercing blue eyes narrowed as he looked from her face to the bag. "No, this is mine. I have the same model, and I've been watching it go around twice now." "There must be a mistake," Lily insisted, her voice barely audible above the airport noise. "I packed this myself. I can show you what's inside." "Look," he interrupted, his tone softening slightly at the sight of the sleeping baby. "I understand there's confusion, but I'm already late for an important meeting. My driver is waiting outside." A security officer approached, drawn by their quiet dispute. "Is there a problem here?" Before Lily could respond, the man, whose commanding presence had already attracted curious glances, smiled diplomatically. "Just a minor baggage mix-up, nothing to worry about." The officer looked at Lily expectantly. The weight of the situation crashed down on her, alone in a new city with a baby, arguing with someone who clearly wielded influence and authority. Her last dollars had gone to the cab fare she'd need to reach Kate's apartment. If she lost these bags... The tag, she suddenly remembered, pointing to a tattered paper luggage tag dangling from the handle. "My name is on it." The man raised an eyebrow and turned the tag over. His expression changed immediately, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. He released the handle and stepped back, then reached past Lily to the conveyor belt, where an identical blue suitcase was making its way around. "It appears I was mistaken," he said, retrieving the other bag and checking its tag. "This one is mine. I apologize for the confusion." Relief flooded through Lily, but it was short-lived as she attempted to lift both her bags with one arm while keeping Grace secure. The blue suitcase immediately toppled over due to its broken wheel, and the duffel slipped from her shoulder. The man watched her struggle for a moment before setting down his own luggage. "Allow me to help. I'm Robert Thornton, by the way." "Lily Matthews," she replied hesitantly, "and this is Grace." As Robert easily hoisted her bags, Grace stirred and opened her eyes, regarding the stranger with curious wonder. To Lily's surprise, the stern businessman's face softened as he smiled at the baby. "Where are you headed, Miss Matthews?" he asked, his tone entirely different now. "Dorchester," she replied, following him toward the exit. "My friend Kate is expecting us." Robert nodded. "My driver can take you. It's the least I can do after almost walking off with your belongings." "Oh, I couldn't possibly." Lily started to protest, but was interrupted by a sudden downpour that intensified outside the airport windows. Grace began to fuss at the loud drumming of rain against glass. "I insist," Robert said, already walking toward the exit. "Besides, it looks like your little one doesn't appreciate this weather. Neither of you should be waiting for a cab in this storm." As they approached the automatic doors, Lily hesitated. Everything she'd experienced in the past year had taught her to be wary of unexpected kindness. There was always a catch, a price to pay later. But as Grace began to cry in earnest, and the rain pounded mercilessly outside, she found herself following the mysterious CEO through the doors toward a sleek black car waiting at the curb. What Lily couldn't possibly know was that this chance encounter at baggage claim would change the course of both their lives forever, beginning with the contents of that worn blue suitcase that Robert had almost claimed as his own. The interior of Robert Thornton's town car was immaculate, all black leather and polished surfaces that made Lily acutely aware of her wrinkled clothes and Grace's sticky fingers. She sat perched on the edge of the seat, as if trying to minimize her physical presence in this unfamiliar luxury. "Dorchester, you said?" Robert confirmed, instructing his driver, Michael, through the partition. "What's the address?" Lily fumbled in her pocket for the slip of paper where she'd written Kate's information. 17 Ashmont Street, apartment 3B. Robert raised an eyebrow, but said nothing as he relayed the address. The car pulled smoothly away from the curb, windshield wipers working furiously against the downpour. "Thank you for this," Lily said, breaking the awkward silence. "I don't know what we would have done in that storm." "It's nothing," Robert replied, his attention seemingly focused on his phone. After a moment, he set it down and turned to look at her properly. "So what brings you to Boston? Family?" "A fresh start," Lily said simply, not wanting to divulge her desperate circumstances to a stranger, no matter how helpful he'd been. "My friend Kate has a spare room." Grace, now fully awake, began squirming and reaching toward Robert with curious hands. Lily tried to restrain her, mortified at the thought of her daughter touching the man's clearly expensive suit. "I'm so sorry." To her surprise, Robert chuckled. "It's fine. I have nieces and nephews." He reached into his pocket and produced a small wooden puzzle, the type given as executive gifts, and offered it to Grace. The baby grabbed it eagerly, immediately fascinated by its moving parts. "You're good with her," Lily observed, relaxing slightly. "Children are honest. It's refreshing in my line of work." Robert's gaze softened momentarily before returning to its usual sharpness. "Thornton Industries. We develop sustainable building materials." "That sounds important," Lily replied, feeling increasingly out of place. "It's just work," he said dismissively. "What did you do in Phoenix?" she supplied. "I was a waitress at a diner. Before that, I worked at a daycare center until they downsized." Robert nodded, but his attention had drifted to Lily's blue suitcase. "Forgive me for asking, but that tag looked quite worn. Have you had that luggage a long time?" An odd question, Lily thought. "It was my mother's. She passed away 3 years ago." "I'm sorry to hear that," Robert said, his expression unreadable. "And the father, Grace's father, I mean." Lily stiffened. "Not in the picture," she said curtly. Robert seemed about to say something else when his phone rang. He answered it immediately, his voice transforming into something sharper, more commanding. "Thornton speaking." "Yes, I just landed." "No, tell Jenkins the meeting needs to be pushed to 4, because I said so, that's why." While he spoke, Lily gazed out the window at the unfamiliar city passing by. The rain had eased somewhat, revealing glimpses of historic buildings alongside modern skyscrapers. Boston, her new home, though it felt as foreign as another planet. "Sorry about that," Robert said after ending the call. "Business never sleeps." "Must be nice," Lily murmured, then immediately regretted her bitter tone. "I mean, having something you're passionate about." Robert studied her curiously. "What are you passionate about, Lily Matthews?" The question caught her off guard. Between surviving an unplanned pregnancy, losing her mother to cancer, and struggling to keep a roof over their heads, passion had been a luxury she couldn't afford. Right now, making sure Grace has a better life than I did. Something in Robert's expression changed, Recognition, perhaps, or respect. Admirable. The car slowed as they entered Dorchester, the surroundings shifting to triple-deckers and smaller businesses. When they pulled up to Kate's address, Lily's heart sank. The building looked far more run-down than Kate had described, with peeling paint and a front door secured by what appeared to be a broken lock. "This is it?" Robert asked, making no effort to hide his concern. "It's temporary," Lily said defensively, gathering grace and reaching for the door handle. "Thank you again for the ride." "Wait," Robert said, reaching into his jacket. He produced a business card and held it out to her. "If you need anything, a job reference perhaps, call my office." Lily took the card hesitantly. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." Robert's gaze drifted to Grace, who was still happily playing with his puzzle. "Let's just say I recognize determination when I see it. Not everyone would stand their ground against a stranger at the airport." Before Lily could respond, Michael had already unloaded her bags onto the sidewalk. Robert stepped out to help, despite her protests, carrying the heavier suitcase to the building's entrance. "Take care, Miss Matthews," he said formally, handing Grace back the puzzle when she tried to return it. "She can keep it, and remember, my offer stands." As the town car pulled away, Lily stood on the sidewalk with her bags, Grace, and an inexplicable sense that something significant had just happened. She tucked Robert's business card into her pocket and turned toward the building, only to find the front door locked tight with no sign of Kate. After 15 minutes of unanswered calls and knocking, a neighbor finally emerged from the first-floor apartment. "You looking for Kate Turner?" "Yes," Lily replied, hope rising. "She's expecting us. We're supposed to stay with her." The woman's face fell. "Oh, honey, you didn't know? Kate moved out 3 weeks ago. The landlord evicted her for not paying rent." The world seemed to tilt beneath Lily's feet. No Kate, no room, no plan. Her last $50 wouldn't cover even one night at a decent hotel. Just then, Grace began to fuss, hungry after the long journey. Lily's eyes fell on her blue suitcase, the one Robert had almost taken, and a desperate idea formed. She quickly unzipped it, reaching past clothes and toiletries to a hidden inner pocket where she kept her mother's few valuables. What she found inside made her blood run cold. Instead of her mother's modest jewelry and the envelope containing her birth certificate and social security card, the pocket contained a sleek black leather portfolio. With trembling hands, Lily opened it to find corporate documents bearing the Thornton Industries logo, and more alarmingly, what appeared to be confidential blueprints for something called Project Horizon. "This isn't my suitcase," she whispered, realization dawning. Despite the identical exterior, the contents confirmed her worst fear. In the confusion at the airport, she and Robert had taken each other's bags after all. Which meant Robert Thornton now had her identity documents, her mother's wedding ring, and the antique locket containing the only photo she had of her father. The last pieces of a past she could never reclaim. Rain began to fall again as Lily stood frozen on the sidewalk, the implications of their luggage mix-up hitting her like a physical blow. Not only was she stranded in an unfamiliar city with nowhere to go, but her most precious possessions, her very identity, were now in the hands of a stranger. "You all right, honey?" the neighbor asked, eyeing the corporate documents in Lily's hands. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," Lily lied, hastily returning the papers to the suitcase. "Just—" Surprised about Kate, the woman who introduced herself as Mrs. Patel clucked sympathetically. That girl was always unreliable, never should have trusted her to hold an apartment. Grace began to cry in earnest now, hungry and overwhelmed. The sound galvanized Lily into action. She had to focus on immediate needs first, shelter, food, and then retrieving her belongings. "Is there a cheap motel nearby?" she asked Mrs. Patel. "Or maybe a shelter?" Mrs. Patel's expression softened. "With a baby. Honey, those places aren't safe. Look, I've got a spare room since my son went to college. It's not much, but you're welcome to it for tonight while you sort things out." Lily's pride warred with her desperation. "I couldn't impose—" "Nonsense! I was a single mother once, too. Now come inside before you both catch pneumonia." Once settled in Mrs. Patel's cozy apartment, with Grace fed and playing on a blanket on the floor, Lily finally had a moment to think clearly. She pulled out Robert's business card and stared at it. Thornton Industries headquarters was downtown, according to the embossed address. "I need to call him," she murmured, reaching for her phone only to realize the battery had died. Mrs. Patel kindly lent her a charger, and Lily waited impatiently for the device to power up. When she finally dialed the number on the card, a polished receptionist answered. "Thornton Industries. How may I direct your call?" "Robert Thornton, please." "It's urgent. We met today at the airport. My name is Lily Matthews. I'm sorry, Miss Matthews, but Mr. Thornton is in meetings for the remainder of the day. May I take a message?" Lily's heart sank. "Please tell him we have each other's luggage. I have his documents and he has—" Her voice cracked. "He has everything important to me. I'll make sure he gets the message," the receptionist promised, her tone skeptical. After hanging up, Lily opened Robert's suitcase again, curious about what could be so important that he'd nearly wrestled her for it at the airport. The black portfolio contained architectural drawings, financial projections, and a thick contract with several sections highlighted in yellow. The project name Horizon appeared repeatedly, along with references to revolutionary sustainable housing and low-income community transformation. One document caught her attention, a map of Boston with a section of Dorchester circled in red. With a jolt, Lily realized it was this very neighborhood. She flipped through more pages, finding references to property acquisitions and relocations. "They're buying up this area," she whispered to herself, the pieces clicking together. This wasn't just any business deal. It was a major development project that would likely displace current residents, including people like Mrs. Patel. Lily's phone rang, startling her. The screen showed an unknown number. "Hello? Ms. Matthews." Robert's voice was tight with controlled anger. "I believe we have a situation." "Mr. Thornton," Lily replied, trying to keep her own voice steady. "Yes, we accidentally switched bags." "Not accidentally," he cut in. "I've reviewed the security footage from the airport. You deliberately took my bag after I set it down to help you." Lily gasped. "That's not true. Why would I?" "Perhaps because you or whoever you're working for knew exactly what was in it. Industrial espionage isn't uncommon in my business." "Industrial what? I'm a single mother who just moved across the country, not a corporate spy," Lily protested, anger replacing her initial shock. "And for your information, you have my bag too, with everything I own in this world, including my identity documents and the only mementos I have of my parents." There was a pause on the other end. "Where are you now?" Robert finally asked, his tone marginally less accusatory. Lily hesitated, suddenly wary of revealing her location. "Why?" "Because I'm sending my driver to pick you up. We need to resolve this immediately, face to face." "I'm not going anywhere with your driver," Lily stated firmly. "We can meet somewhere public." Another pause. "Fine. The Starbucks on Washington Street downtown. 1 hour." "I have my daughter with me," Lily reminded him. "Bring her. 1 hour, Ms. Matthews, and bring my suitcase, all of its contents intact." The line went dead before she could respond. Lily stared at the phone in disbelief, then at Grace, who was contentedly stacking blocks Mrs. Patel had provided. "He thinks I'm a spy," she told the baby, who gurgled happily in response. "Your mommy, a spy? As if I have time for espionage between diaper changes." Despite the absurdity of the accusation, fear crept through her. Robert Thornton was clearly powerful, and now believed she had deliberately stolen from him. What if he called the police? With her documents in his possession, she'd have trouble proving her identity. Mrs. Patel agreed to watch Grace. "A public meeting with an angry businessman is no place for a baby, dear," and gave Lily bus fare to get downtown. An hour later, Lily sat nervously in the Starbucks, Robert's blue suitcase beside her, scanning every customer who entered. Robert arrived precisely on time, her green duffel bag in hand. He looked even more imposing in daylight, his expression stern as he spotted her and strode over. "Ms. Matthews," he said coolly, setting the duffel down and taking the seat opposite her. "Mr. Thornton," she replied, pushing his suitcase toward him. "Your documents are all there, untouched." "I didn't steal anything." Robert unzipped the bag and quickly verified its contents before fixing Lily with a penetrating stare. "The timing is remarkably convenient, don't you think? You appear at the exact airport terminal on the exact day I'm transporting confidential plans with an identical suitcase." "It's my mother's old suitcase," Lily said, fighting to keep her voice level. "And I didn't even know who you were until you offered me a ride." "A ride to Dorchester, the precise neighborhood featured in my development plans," he countered. "And now you've had hours to review those plans." Lily's patience snapped. "Yes, I saw your plans. Your Project Horizon that's going to bulldoze people's homes for luxury condos or whatever you're building. Is that why you're so paranoid? Because you know what you're doing is wrong. Robert's eyes widened slightly, his composure slipping for the first time. You have no idea what you're talking about. Don't I? I may be poor, Mr. Thornton, but I'm not stupid. Those documents show you're buying up property in a struggling neighborhood. People like my friend Kate, like Mrs. Patel, who took me in when I had nowhere to go, they'll be pushed out so you can make more millions. A complicated expression crossed Robert's face. Surprise, respect, and something else Lily couldn't identify. He reached for her duffel bag and carefully unzipped it. I didn't look through your personal belongings, he said, his tone softer. Your documents and other items should be in the inside pocket, as you described to my assistant. Lily quickly verified that her birth certificate, social security card, and her mother's jewelry were indeed intact. Relief washed over her, followed immediately by embarrassment. She'd accused him of displacing vulnerable people, and he'd respected her privacy when he could have easily invaded it. Thank you, she said quietly. And I'm sorry for what I said about your project. It's none of my business. Robert studied her for a long moment. Actually, Ms. Matthews, I think you've made it your business, and given what you now know, perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private. I should get back to Grace, Lily said, suddenly uncomfortable under his intense scrutiny. Your daughter is with someone trustworthy. Lily nodded. Then please, give me 30 minutes. My office is just down the street. What I have to show you might change your perspective on Thornton Industries and possibly your future in Boston. Something in his tone made Lily hesitate. Against her better judgment, she found herself agreeing. As they walked toward the imposing glass tower bearing the Thornton Industries logo, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was crossing a threshold from which there would be no return. What she couldn't possibly know was that Robert Thornton had recognized something in her worn suitcase, something that had shaken him to his core and changed everything he thought he knew about Lily Matthews and her unexpected appearance in his life. The Thornton Industries headquarters towered above the surrounding buildings, its glass facade reflecting the clearing sky as the storm finally moved offshore. Inside, employees in tailored suits nodded respectfully as Robert led Lily through the marble lobby to a private elevator. She clutched her recovered duffel bag tightly, feeling painfully out of place in her travel-worn clothes. My office is on the top floor, Robert explained as the elevator ascended smoothly. What I'm about to share with you is confidential. Lily swallowed nervously. Mr. Thornton, if this is about your development plans, I promise I'm not interested in causing trouble. I just want to start over with my daughter. The elevator doors opened directly into a spacious corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Harbor. Robert gestured for Lily to sit in one of the leather chairs facing his imposing desk. Before I explain Project Horizon, he said, remaining standing, I need to ask you something personal. He hesitated, then continued, Your mother's name, was it Eleanor Matthews? Lily stiffened, caught completely off guard. How could you possibly know that? Instead of answering, Robert opened a drawer and removed a framed photograph, placing it carefully on the desk in front of her. The image showed a much younger Robert, alongside a woman Lily recognized immediately, her mother at least 20 years ago, smiling broadly in front of what appeared to be a university building. Your mother and I were classmates at MIT, Robert said quietly. She was brilliant, the most talented architectural engineer in our program. Lily's hand trembled as she picked up the photograph. She never mentioned knowing you. We lost touch after graduation. Eleanor had strong principles about using her skills for social good, while I was focused on building my father's company into something bigger. Robert's voice carried a hint of regret. When I saw your mother's initials engraved on the inside of that suitcase, I could hardly believe it. The monogram, Lily whispered. ERM Eleanor Rose Matthews. Robert nodded. When I realized whose daughter you must be, I had my team investigate. Your mother continued her work in community-focused architecture until her illness, didn't she? Yes, designing affordable housing in Phoenix. It didn't pay much, but she loved it. Lily looked up, confusion evident in her expression. But what does this have to do with your development project? Robert finally sat down, his professional demeanor softening. Project Horizon isn't what you think it is, Lily. It's not about luxury condos or displacing residents. It's about creating sustainable, affordable housing that people can actually own, not just rent. He pressed a button on his desk, and a holographic display illuminated the center of the office, showing architectural renderings of a vibrant community with green spaces, solar panels, and buildings that somehow looked both modern and welcoming. The problem with most affordable housing is that it's either poorly constructed, environmentally unsound, or designed without considering the actual needs of the community, Robert explained, rotating the display to show different angles. Project Horizon aims to change that paradigm completely. Lily stared at the renderings, recognizing elements that reminded her of her mother's work. This is why you were so protective of those documents. It's not just another development, it's revolutionary. Potentially, yes, but we've faced opposition from traditional developers and even some community members who don't trust our intentions. Robert's expression darkened. There have been attempts to steal our plans or sabotage the project. That's why I was suspicious when our bags were switched. I understand now, Lily said softly. My mother would have loved this concept. Robert's eyes met hers. That's just it, Lily. She did love it, because part of it was her idea. What? Lily gasped. 6 months before she passed away, Eleanor contacted me out of the blue. She'd been developing a theoretical framework for community-owned sustainable housing and wanted my company's resources to make it reality. We began collaborating long distance. He paused, his voice growing quieter. When she became too ill to continue, she sent me her final notes and asked me to promise I'd see it through. Tears welled in Lily's eyes. She never told me. She wanted to protect you from disappointment if it didn't work out. And truthfully, after she passed, the project stalled. Until now. Lily stood up suddenly, overwhelmed by emotions. I need some air. Robert nodded understanding and led her to a private terrace overlooking the city. They stood in silence for several minutes as Lily processed everything. The portfolio in your suitcase, she finally said, it contained my mother's final vision, didn't it? That's why you were so desperate to get it back. Yes. We're presenting the full project to the City Council next week. If approved, construction begins in Dorchester this summer. Robert turned to face her directly. Which brings me to why I brought you here today. Lily, I'd like to offer you a position at Thornton Industries. Me? Lily laughed incredulously. I'm a waitress with an associate's degree. What position could I possibly fill here? Community liaison for Project Horizon, Robert replied without hesitation. You have your mother's passion and perspective. You understand the people this project aims to serve because you are one of them. That insight is invaluable to us. Lily shook her head in disbelief. This is too much. Yesterday I was being evicted in Phoenix, and today you're offering me a job helping to build my mother's legacy. Life has strange timing, Robert said with a small smile. The position comes with a comfortable salary and an apartment in one of our existing properties until Horizon is complete. There would be daycare for Grace on site. Why would you do this for me? Lily asked, still suspicious despite everything. Partially to honor a promise to your mother, Robert admitted, but also because I've seen how you think, how you advocate for people like Mrs. Patel. Project Horizon needs that voice to succeed. As the setting sun cast golden light across the Boston skyline, Lily thought about the incredible journey that had brought her here, from desperation to opportunity in a single day. She thought about Grace and the stable future this could provide. And she thought about her mother, whose vision would now help countless families like her own. I need to think about it, she said finally. This is a lot to process, of course. Take the weekend, Robert replied, handing her another business card with his personal number written on the back. The offer stands regardless of your decision. Later that evening, after retrieving Grace from Mrs. Patel's apartment, Lily sat on the bed in the hotel room Robert had insisted on arranging for them. Grace slept peacefully beside her as Lily opened her mother's locket, studying the faded photograph inside. You had one last surprise for me, didn't you, Mom? She whispered. Always thinking ahead, her phone chimed with a text message from Robert. Forgot to mention, if you accept the position, your first task would be naming the Central Community Building. I thought the Eleanor Matthews Center has a nice ring to it. Tears slipped down Lily's cheeks as she typed her reply. When can I start? 6 months later, Lily stood on the construction site of Project Horizon, wearing a hard hat and holding building plans as she explained the community garden features to a group of future residents. Grace, now approaching her second birthday, played nearby under the watchful eye of Robert's assistant. "Ms. Matthews," called Robert as he approached across the site. "The mayor just confirmed for the cornerstone ceremony next week." "Excellent," Lily replied with the confidence of someone who had found her purpose. "And the first phase of apartments will be ready for occupancy next month?" "Right on schedule," Robert confirmed, crouching down to greet Grace, who had toddled over at the sight of him. The once stern CEO had become a regular fixture in their lives, his business acumen complementing Lily's community insight in ways that had already earned Project Horizon national recognition. As the three of them stood together on the site that would soon become home to dozens of families like Lily's, she marveled at how a simple mix-up of identical suitcases had changed everything. What had seemed like a disaster had become the beginning of something remarkable, not just a building project, but the foundation of a new life. "You know," Robert said thoughtfully, watching construction workers install solar panels designed according to Eleanor's